Ilan Grapel, the Israeli-American citizen accused of espionage and held in Egypt since June 12th, is to be released on Thursday in exchange for 25 Egyptian prisoners held in Israeli jails. On Tuesday, the Security Cabinet approved the deal. The prisoner swap is expected to take place at the Taba crossing between southern Israel and Egypt. On Monday night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with Grapel's parents in the United States and informed them of the deal. Grapel, who lives in Queens with his family, served in the Israeli army and had gone to work in a legal aid organization in Cairo when he was nabbed. Almagor, an organization that represents terror victims, claimed half of the Egyptians to be released are security prisoners and provided weapons to terrorists, while the other half were involved in drug smuggling. Jerusalem city engineer Shlomo Eshkol sent a warning letter declaring the Mughrabi Gate bridge unsafe and demanded that it be demolished within a month and a new one erected. The bridge is the only entrance to the Temple Mount compound for tourists and non-Muslims and security personnel. Eshkol sent a letter to the Western Wall Heritage Foundation demanding the bridge be fixed, saying that in its current state, it endangers human life. The current wooden pedestrian bridge was constructed in 2007 following a landslide in 2005. Last year, the Antiquities Authority began working at the site to build a more permanent bridge, but was halted due to world condemnation and unfounded claims that Israel was harming the foundations of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas demands Israel free Marwan Barghouti and Ahmed Sadat in exchange for the resumption of peace talks with Israel. In a recent interview with Time magazine, Abbas said he expects Israel to fulfill a pledge made by former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert to Abbas, who promised him that they would be released in a deal for the release of Gilad Shalit. However, Egypt mediated a deal between Israel and Hamas that led to Shalit's release in exchange for 1,027 Palestinian prisoners, the majority members of Hamas. Some members of the inner cabinet are said to report the Palestinian demand, but senior cabinet ministers have said over the past few days that the government does not intend to make any gestures to Abbas in light of his bid for statehood in the United Nations. In 2004, an Israeli court sentenced Fatah leader Barghouti to 5 life sentences for his involvement in terror attacks in which Israelis were killed. Sadat, leader of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, was sentenced to 30 years in prison in 2008 for his involvement in the murder of former Israeli tourism minister Rehavam Ze'evi. The Army is set to revise the Hannibal Protocol, a procedure that stipulates that the abduction of a living Israeli soldier must be prevented at all costs. Since the return of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit in exchange for the release of 1,027 Palestinian prisoners, Hamas has said it will continue to kidnap more soldiers until all Palestinian prisoners incarcerated in Israel are released. Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Benny Gantz has instructed commanders to examine ways to thwart kidnappings, even at the expense of a soldier's life. The Hannibal Protocol became official in the 1980s and states that soldiers must prevent the abduction of a living soldier at all costs, including opening fire on the abductor's vehicle. The protocol takes into account that the captive soldier may be killed in such instances and upholds the belief that a dead soldier is preferable to a kidnapped soldier and will prevent Israel from paying a heavy price for the captive. Spacecom Satellite Communications won a $27.6 million 5-year contract to supply satellite communications from its Amos 5 satellite. The Amos 5 satellite is scheduled to launch in December, and a new contract will allow the company to expand its services to African countries. The first of Spacecom's satellite fleet, Amos 1, was launched in 1996 and currently consists of Amos 2 and Amos 3. Amos 5, to be launched later this year, will deliver the entire African continent with access to Europe and the Middle East. Amos 4 is scheduled to commence operations in 2013, extending Spacecom's footprint to Asia and Russia, as well as the Middle East and Europe. Amos 6 is expected to become operational in 2014.